am behind the camera. I'm Courtney Wallace, and this will be my third video for my leadership and ministry class for Dr. Clancy Hayes. And in front of me, that you can see, I have Amberlee Buffington and Michael Buffington, which I almost just called Buff Buffington because I'm just used to calling him Buff. And they have been friends of ours for, almost 10 years, I would say, close to that. So I wanted to bring them in because they have some ministry insight and leadership insight throughout their journey. So thank you both for taking the time out to sit down with me. And I'm looking forward to hearing your story and learning from your years in ministry together. To start, I'd love to hear a little bit about how all of this began for each of you.
It was really by accident.
Total accident.
So one day we were sitting in service, and I couldn't tell you what the preacher said because I had no idea. I was having an argument with God. He said, I need you to cut this and this, and I need you to be at the church on Tuesdays, every Tuesday.
Wow.
And I was like, there's not a need. God, I don't know what you're talking about. I literally argued with him the whole entire service. At the end of the service, I found the pastor's wife and I said, hey, the Lord told me that I'm supposed to be here once a week. I don't know what that looks like. I'll scrub toilets. I'll do whatever. But he's supposed to be here every Tuesday when you guys are at the office. And she goes, oh my gosh, I was just praying for help.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so that kind of spiraled, and the Lord told me I was the in the gap person. So wherever there's a gap, that's where you'll be. And I said, okay, God, I'll do that. Well, because I had started working in the office, one of the ladies that went to youth camp with the kids was very ill. She had colon cancer and she couldn't go. And so they needed an extra adult. And they asked me if I would go. And I was like, sure, but I got to talk to Michael about that because we have 4 kids. They were all little. It was an entire week of no mama.
Right.
Only
I was not on board.
And he was like, but we don't have the money. I'm like, they said they would pay for it. So, I mean, he's like, well, okay.
Literally, there was no way I could say no because everything I had a question about was taken care of.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I went to camp with them. We went to CFNI for Youth for the Nations, and I really fell in love with the kids. And when we came back home, I was like, hey, they don't really have a place to hang out. And we had, 5 acres at the time?
6 acres.
6
yeah.
acres at the time. And so we opened up our home, and we did something called the Olympics at the house. Michael made a mud pit. We had all of these games planned out. It was super fun. The kids had a ball. Shortly after that, the youth pastor decided that he was going to start doing services. And the kids were like, oh, y'all are coming to our service. We're like, we're adults. We are not youth kids. They're like, oh, you should come. You should talk to the youth pastor. So we did. And he's like, yeah, y'all should come. That's a great idea. So we went to the service, and at the end of the service, he said, oh, these are our new youth leaders, Michael and Amberlee. And we're like,
You're like, time out. We're like, time out. Nope. We just offered our property to you, so you guys have a place to hang out. And, after that, that was it.
We were just youth leaders.
Wow.
And so in that church, I think we went through, 3 youth pastors?
Something like that.
3 youth pastors.
And y'all were just always there throughout all of it.
11 years.
Wow. So, at what point did you realize that this wasn't just maybe a volunteer, like being obedient, but something that God was calling you to long term? Or did you realize that?
We did eventually.
We did eventually when God told us to leave that group and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Had no idea where we were going to go. He just said, hey, run.
Yeah.
And it was because of issues with the church and everything like that. We were already praying about leaving, but he told us run. Well, where he brought us to was 56 miles one way to church. And, of course, we were driving the excursion at the time. You know, I'm like, come on, God, there's got to be a lot of churches closer than what we're doing now, you know. But he didn't, and we just kept feeling a draw to this one church. And I sent our boys in first because they had friends that went there. And they were like, we really like it. Like, this is awesome, you know, whatever. And so me being the protector Like, I went and met the youth pastor and all that stuff. And he's like, hey, y'all got solid boys. Why don't y'all come in and hang out? And I'm like, nope. Our season in youth ministry is done. We've done long enough and all this. And he's like, okay. And then he was like, well, we're going to CF&I this year. It's the first time we're ever going. And I'm like, look, if you need any questions or anything, like, we've been there about 9-10 years in a row now. You know, I said, so we know a little bit about it. Just ask. And I was like, but we're not jumping back into it. And he's like, okay, all right, cool. You know, and I cried all the way home because I told him no. And so after that, we went in and I was like, okay, we're gonna, he's like, just come and hang out. That's it. Just come and sit down. We're having a baptismal Wednesday, this and that. He's like, just sit down and see what it's all about. All right. And that's what we did. And we served with him for 4.5 years. And until that season lifted as well. But anyway, but the cool thing about that is we learned the difference between God putting you in a place to learn to being in a place of an assignment. And we had an assignment there because about that young man was, I say young man, geez, he was around 21, taking over a youth group of about 60, 80 kids. Yeah. He had been praying, him and the pastor had been praying for about 3 or 4 months is what he told us, about an older couple coming in that would help him, but also love the kids. And that was a big thing for us. And he did not disclose that to us until about 6 months later. Wow. So we had to be obedient in being there. Mm-hmm. But also, too, we're thankful that God revealed to us, hey, you were right. Yeah. This is what it is. And so, anyway, that was a fun season. But when the grace lifted, it lifted. Yeah. And that was it. But now he's doing really well. He just needed us for that certain season to where he could bounce things off of us. And we had to learn to tell him, nah, that's not a great idea, you know?
Yeah. So one very unique thing about your story, and I don't know if it's technically a unique thing across the board, but y'all lead together. It's always been something y'all have done together and in partnership. So what does it actually look like day to day to lead as a married couple in ministry?
You have to learn your spot.
Yeah, I think it's really about knowing my strengths and my weaknesses, and knowing his strengths and his weaknesses, and being able to work that together for the common good.
So what differences do y'all have as far as, I don't want you to point out like your flaws or anything like that, or or weaknesses, because to me your weakness may not be something that I would view as a weakness, so I don't want you to feel that way. But what is something that that like your strength and her strength, maybe y'all can talk about what you see in each other that you maybe don't have in yourself that you admire about each other's strengths in that aspect.
Michael is very good at seeing in the spiritual realm, more so than I do. Like, he's seen several angels and he can see things spiritually from a spiritual aspect that I can't necessarily see. But I think one of my strengths is teaching. So I have a way of teaching that he doesn't have. Mm-hmm. He can teach. It just doesn't come as easy for him.
Yeah. I'm more of a protector role. Like, I see things that people don't normally see, which is, I guess, the spiritual realm thing, but she teaches in a way that I'm like, holy cow, I've never seen that before, And so, yeah, I think that's our biggest deal is I'm the provider, the protector type of role, to where I can come in and support her doing the teaching. And I love that. Like, that gives me more fuel than anything else. And so I think that's where we work good together. We've also learned too that it's okay to work separately as well. And that's something that we always thought we needed to do always together type of thing. And there's just some times that God will reveal something to me and it won't to her and vice versa. So you have to understand, like, it's okay to be, you know, to work in that gifting by yourself. Although we feel it's more powerful with both of us there together, sometimes it's supposed to be just you. And so
when those differences do come up, and like maybe the separation of work together, how do you work through those while still maintaining unity and a shared vision?
I think it's knowing what the vision is first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you always have to have an end goal in mind. And it's not necessarily how we get there, but that we get there.
Yeah.
And holding on to what it is God has told us together and individually.
yeah, that's
So you've both been in ministry for about, 20 years or so, which brings a lot of perspective. How has your leadership philosophy changed over time, especially with the culture of things?
How has it changed over time? The things that seemed important in the beginning are not as important now.
Mm-hmm.
Things like
numbers.
Yeah.
Things like depth. So I think in the beginning we were very gung-ho. The more we could get, the better.
Yeah.
But then as we evolved, like, it's more about what's the fruit of this,
Mm-hmm.
rather than we have a high number.
Yeah, no,
Anything?
totally. And you have to understand too, like, you have to learn to change a little bit with the seasons. And if we don't adapt, then it's less we're going to be able to reach,
Right.
you know. And not to say you're okay with things, but you have to learn to work with what you've been given, and, you know, do it that way too.
Looking back, and this may be a follow up to the numbers question, or the numbers answer. Are there any leadership practices or mindsets you once thought were essential that you had to let go along the way?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think another thing that we learned was not every kid's the same,
Mm-hmm.
and they all need something different. Where in the beginning it was more like, okay, we have this cookie cutter thing, and that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't even work in different groups of kids, you know, depending on their background and things. And so those are things that we had to learn.
Be your authentic self.
Yeah.
Yes.
No matter where you're at or what you're doing, because they see more than what they're going to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I said, with that last group that, you know, God said, you know, season was done or whatever, well, they prayed us out and everything like that. And I had some of the guys that came up to me and they're like, we're really going to miss you. And I'm like, I thought you hated me. You know, like,
to be
I
fair,
was,
youth is a little bit harder to
yeah,
judge if they like
and
you or not.
exactly. But I mean, I was always on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I even called them my turds, like they were my group, you know. I don't know how I had the attraction there, but that's who they flocked to, was me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was constant discipline. It was constant just like, dude, what are you thinking? You know, but they were like, you were always here. You were constant. You were this. So all those days that I'm like, God, why do we have to go back there? It was for a reason, you know? And so we had to stay in that season to do that. And I feel like that touches more lives than, you know, anything else you could do. It's just being your authentic self and showing them you love them in a way they understood.
Yeah. I know longevity in ministry also comes with some difficult seasons. What has been one of the most challenging seasons of leadership that you faced together?
Going from country kids to city kids.
Yeah, completely different.
They're so totally different, because we went from Kuntz
Yep.
to Nederland.
Yeah.
It was a whole different culture. And we were like,
Just like 30 miles apart? Well, something like that. Like from Coots to
Yeah.
Nederland's like only 30 miles.
yeah, but it was a huge adjustment. They had problems that our country kids didn't have.
Yeah.
because the first church we were in, most all of the parents came to church. So if you had an issue with a kid, you just talk to the parent.
Yeah.
But in the city, it's not like that. None of those kids, I would say maybe 5 out of the 80 that we had, their parents came to church.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, they would ride their bike. They would even ride their bike in the middle of town.
Yeah, and Maryland's busy.
It's busy. So that was a challenging season to adjust from here to here.
And a lot of them were like, some of their parents were like in jail.
Yeah.
And being raised by grandparents and stuff like that. So, yeah, you had to learn to love them differently.
I
And
think, like what you said about being consistent, we had talked about that yesterday, about consistency is a big thing, being inconstant.
Authentic and inconsistent. Yeah. That's what we found this generation now. They just want you to be real with them. Yeah. And, you know, and it's not like they don't want you to sugarcoat it or nothing like that. Just be real.
What sustained y'all through that from the move?
Holding on to the promise that God said we were supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would go, God, I don't understand these kids. And he was like, I trust you with them.
Yeah.
And that made an impact for me. Because he trusted, I can't tell you how many times I told that youth pastor, I'm like, I don't understand what's going on, but God trusts us with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
He trusts us. And so holding on to that promise that he gave me care of something that was really hard sustained us through that time.
Yeah. And knowing you heard what you heard.
Yeah.
When God said to move, you moved. And you're obedient to it, although you had no clue why. And we didn't find out for 6 months, but we knew that there was just something that was drawing us to that place, that position, to those people. And we didn't know why, but we knew there was something there.
And we even knew it was temporary.
Yeah.
We knew it wasn't our forever home.
Wow. And to still give the type of love that you gave to kids, knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You're also leading students and young adults in a rapidly changing culture, which we kind of talked about. How do you navigate generational and cultural shifts while staying firmly grounded in biblical truth?
Study, study, study. Number one, we always have to stay in our word. I think the second thing is trying to understand them. I think that's what we don't do in the church, is we don't try to understand where they are. We just want it to be the way it was. Yeah. And it's never going to be that way again. So we have to understand who they are and what they are facing. That was another wake-up call, is those city kids dealt with some things our country kids never dealt with. Yeah. And I think the third thing, Michael already alluded to it, is being authentic. Mm-hmm. I think those three things are how you navigate cultural shifts. Do you have anything to say?
No, that's it. I mean, truly, they just want you to be real.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to classify anybody, but like that older generation doesn't understand that. Yeah. You know, and like if we could just get them to understand that and come up behind this younger generation, like revival would break out all over the place because they need their wisdom.
Yeah.
But they're going to do it differently. And you have to be okay with that. And if they do slip up or screw up or whatever, you got to be there with your wisdom to say, hey, look, I'm not telling you how to do this, but this is what happened and this is what we need to do. Now go do it and figure it out and let them have that freedom to do that. And I think that's where a lot of this younger generation has been lost, is because they just see things differently. They do things differently. They have more talents and giftings than anybody has ever seen, and nobody knows what to do with them.
Yeah.
And so let them be them and let it be different. It's okay.
On the other side of those challenges, there are moments that remind you why you keep going. What are some of the moments in ministry that make the sacrifices of leadership feel worth it?
Every full circle moment, every lumpy bed I ever slept on, all of those things were hard. But in the full circle moments when those kids that I slept on lumpy beds with now are ministers of the gospel, worship leaders, youth pastors, and for them to call and say, hey, I'm preaching at my church today. Will you come see? That made it all worth it.
Yeah, and when you can come in and help them out, when they trust you enough to say, hey, I need some extra help. Can you guys come in and go on this trip with us or go do this event with us or whatever? And you say yes. And they're like, okay, here, you're one of our youth leaders. We don't know a single kid there, but they trust us enough because they saw, they saw what it was before. And then when you meet them in the store and stuff and they're like, hey, look, this is my family. And this is, we serve here, or we, whatever it is. And you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought you would ever make it this far,
Yeah.
But that's the cool part of kind of the season in life we're in now is we get to see the fruits of all those years of like taking all your vacation just to do youth ministry stuff or ministry stuff in general. And that's what's so fun.
How would you say your definition of fruitfulness has changed now compared to earlier in your ministry? Like you were talking about, you thought having a big amount of numbers, but what would be something else that you could see? Like so what would your definition of fruitfulness be now?
It goes from a place, I hate the word hype.
Yeah.
I hate it because hype is not sustainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Hunger is.
Yes.
And so my definition from hype to hunger, like, I don't know when that transition, but that the fruitfulness is in the hunger, not in the hype, because anything you build in your own strength, you have to sustain in your own strength. And so I think that would be how our definition changed.
Yeah. And it goes back to the whole, we're not worried about the numbers. Yeah. It's worried about the hunger of the kids that are there, because that's what sustains us too, is seeing them get it, and it excites you, and it's fun. And when they come to you and they ask you harder and harder questions, it's like, hey, you're thinking about this, and it's not a whole, like she said, a hype thing to where you're trying to impress somebody or whatever. It's legit. I'm really like, can we dig into this together? That kind of thing. So I think that's the difference, is, like I said, when we were young into it and all that stuff, it was more like, man, this is awesome. We have X amount of kids and they did this and this and this, but there was no fruitfulness there. Where now it's like, to sustain this, we have to have some core, fruitfulness here.
Discipleship
Stuff. Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit about y'all's family, because that is such a big part of your story. How did being a blended family shape the way you approach both leadership and ministry?
Well, I learned how to love the unlovable in our blended family. Because we have my daughter, his daughter, and we have boys together. So his daughter did not want to love me. She knew exactly where to poke me or stab me. And so in our blended relationship, I learned to love people who didn't love me first. And I think that was a crucial it was a crucial lesson in loving children in general that don't want to love you. So I really think that's probably my number one takeaway.
And then with her daughter, it was so, her daughter's dad died when she was 8 in a car wreck, tragic situation, all that. But I think I don't know, there was a lot of, animosity, the right word?
Yeah.
On towards me and possibly my daughter, because she didn't have that anymore. You know, and as much as I was always there and all that stuff, it wasn't the same. But again, going back to that, just being your authentic self, I never wavered. She was always my kid from the time I got her when she was 4 years old, all the way through even to today, you know. But it took her till about the age of 16, 17 at youth camp at CFNI. And she actually came over to me and apologized. And she's like, I've never treated you like a dad, and you've always been there for me. So you're looking at 8, almost 10 years, you know, and it was a constant battle, but that taught us so much in that season on how to, like she said, love the ones that aren't going to love you, you know, or that are going to kick back on everything you want to do. They're going to play people against you to make you be the bad guy. I mean, all that stuff. And then too, you know, my daughter had a lot of outside influence that always came in. And so we would have to have conversations, you know, privately and actually, I guess, get a game plan together on like, look, you know, and I had to make some hard phone calls to my parents, to my ex-wife, and be like, look, we don't operate like that. You know, these are things. So that kind of made me grow up more, I feel like, too. But yeah, it was a rough season. I tell people the first 5 years of our marriage was hell.
It was hard.
Because we had so many people coming against us. But I knew from a very young age that she was the one I wanted to marry. And that's all there was to it. And we went through that whole season of life of, you know, children, divorces, and all that stuff. But I don't know if we'll get into our personal story, but, you know, that's where that kind of stems from. But then, too, with our boys, I mean, I think our youngest was 4 days old and he was in church.
Yeah.
You
Mom
know,
told me that the daughters weren't necessarily raised in church, but the boys were.
they had an option not to be.
Yeah.
Because if they were at their other parents' house, they weren't going.
Yeah.
You know, so there was always like, well, why do y'all make us? And they don't. You know, now one of them, she took off with it. Like she was like, no, I feel something here. I know this is right and whatever. The other one, she fought us on it all the time. You know, unless there was a boy involved or something.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's your, you know, then it's your situation where I'm just going there because of a person and not because of, you know, God. And so but I mean, to this day, you know, the older one, she serves, she does a bunch of things at her church, her and her husband both. And then the other one, like, she knows the calling, like she'll call us all the time and say things. It's just, they will not take that first step back into a church building. And there's nothing else I can do about it because, I mean, they're adults. They make their own decisions, you know. But when her kids come to our house, they want to stay an extra day just so they can go to church with us. So that seed is still there. Yeah. And I don't even think she realized it's been transplanted, you know. It's been moved on. But again, we don't waver on any of that stuff. They know where we stand and all that stuff. And I feel like her kids already see that at a very young age. And eventually I feel like God will use her kids just like God used us. God used her to get us back into church.
Yeah.
At like 2 years old, 3 years old. Yeah. She wanted to go with my dad to church, and Dad would come by and pick her up and take her. And then she was like, I want what she has. She could see it in the 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's how our whole journey started back up. Because I'd stepped out. I was, I'd gone crazy for a little while. Yes.
I think another thing that I would like to add is this is the power of that outside influence. I remember our oldest daughter she's the one who lost her dad. And about 17 or 18, she came. She said, you know, Mom, I loved my dad and I miss him every day. But I'm so thankful because I look at her other sister's life and I see what turmoil she goes through because she has to go back and forth. And I didn't have to experience that. So it's a really big deal whenever there is a blended family and half of, you know, they have that other outside influence. Even at 18 years old, she recognized my life would be different if it had gone differently. Not to diminish her dad at all. She loved him. She misses him, but she recognized that it made a difference in her life. So.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of answered the follow-up question on that one, so I'm going to skip ahead. How did you intentionally protect your family's unity while still carrying the demands of a long-term ministry leadership?
Families first.
If they couldn't go, we couldn't go. If
That
we
was it.
couldn't, yeah, if it continually pulled away from them and they couldn't go, like our boys when they were little, if we had a lock-in, they were at the lock-in. They did youth for since they were little.
They were in the youth the whole time.
They were in youth the whole time. You know, and certainly there are places where it wasn't appropriate for them to be. And, you know, like youth camp, we would find someone to, but for the most part, whatever we did, they did. And they were a part of it.
Yep.
And
sometimes that meant they went and like slept in the nursery or whatever. They were always kind of separate in a way, but they always knew where to find mom and dad if they needed us or whatever, you know. But that was our big thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We're a package deal. So it's all or nothing type of thing. Yeah. And we did have some family that helped and whatever too, but it was always, sometimes we'd have to make a decision too. Sometimes I'd have to stay home and she went, you know, and vice versa. But yeah, it was always, family's always first. And then, you know, ministry was a close second.
So after so many years in ministry, sustainability becomes really important. What rhythms or boundaries have been essential for you in maintaining longevity in leadership?
rest, and we just recently learned that.
Yes.
Rest is an important part of the rhythm. Boundaries, in the beginning we didn't always do this, but now we're intentional about asking the Lord, is this something we're supposed to do? Is this supposed to be my yes? Or is it supposed to be my no? And being intentional about where God has called us to be.
Yep. You have to learn that. You really do. If you're not, you're going to wear yourself out. Yeah. You know, it's okay if you are going, or if you're on vacation or something like that, and you just take a Sunday off, or you watch it online instead of finding a church somewhere to go to. You know, it's okay. Because your first ministry is your family, is yourself. Like, that's just, I don't know. I hate that we learn that later, you know, but I'm glad we finally learned it. That don't feel guilty about it. It's okay. You know, just don't stay in that spot. You gotta, you know, take off again.
What are some things, what are some things you wish younger leaders understood about leadership that aren't always obvious in the beginning?
Numbers aren't everything. And we talked about it before, hype over hunger. I wish that
hunger over hype.
Yeah, hunger over hype. I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Thank you. That's why I need them.
That's it.
Sometimes they come out wrong.
Yeah, and just understand it's okay to take a day off. Yeah. You know, don't wear yourself out so bad that you can't be there for what's most important in your life. Yeah. And we've hit that spot a few times. And yeah, you just got to learn it's okay.
And the other thing I think that young leaders don't do is they don't learn to delegate. They want to do everything themselves. Yeah. And so I think that's another really important part is learning to say it's okay to have these people do this or this, that I don't have to do every single thing. So
Mhm.
At this stage in your journey, how do you personally measure success in leadership?
it's about the depth. We kind of talked about it before. It's about seeing the fruitfulness of what you're doing and what you're putting your time into.
Yes. It's about going and having those conversations with former, you know, since we're talking mostly about student ministry, like your former students, and they remember those letters you wrote to them or the verses you wrote, you know, and they call you up when they need you the most, you know, and we're in a position in life now to where we can jump into those things. And so it's like, it's beautiful to me to see that they still trust us, you know, and they still know that we're just a call away. And I don't know. I think that's the season we're in right now, more or less. I don't even remember what the question was. I just kind of.
That's good. I don't. We've kind of went over all the questions. Do y'all have anything that I haven't touched on that maybe y'all want to talk about as far as anything that maybe any funny stories? We haven't done any, like in the other two interviews, I've done no funny stories. So I think we need at least one.
Oh God. Just one?
Oh, if you have multiple, that's fine.
Man, let's see. I remember praying over a van
Oh, Lord.
that almost broke down on me going over the Ship Channel Bridge
Oh no.
in Houston.
Yes. I've never seen that man scared.
Look,
He was scared.
I've driven buses, 18-wheelers, like whatever, you know. I mean, you know, I own the limo now. This van gave me trouble from the start, and they didn't have a replacement. And I'm like, well, it's running good. AC wasn't working, but I had all boys. They stunk anyway, so it didn't matter. And anyway, so they were like, hey, if you can just make it to your destination, we'll send a mechanic out and fix it, whatever. Okay, fine. And, yeah, top speed was like 62, 65, something like that.
Which in Texas is very slow.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I mean, and then
Until we got on the bridge.
till we got on the
Top
Ship
speed
Channel
was
Bridge.
not anywhere near that.
And I mean, I was white knuckled, and I am literally have this thing to the floor, and I'm losing speed, and I'm like, what am I? I'm fixing to throw this thing in park. I got like 12, 13 boys in the back of this thing. I am like, anyway, it's this. I've driven some junk, and that was the most scared I've ever been, and finally, I hit about 10 miles an hour, and I was at the top of this bridge, and then we coasted down and made it to the hotel. May or may not have ran a few red lights, just because if I stopped, it wouldn't pick up speed. Anyway, they ended up swapping it out. Ended up being the computer issue in the van and whatever, and they're like, oh, yeah, we had an issue with it previously like this, too.
Thanks, guys.
You tell me now.
So let's just say they don't rent from that company anymore or anything. But that was kind of one of the more. That was just in the last few years of scary stories.
We always had problems. One year we had ants in our van.
Yeah.
They were eating my feet while I was driving. One time we took a car.
Projectile vomiting. We've had that.
Yeah, projectile vomiting. I remember one time, it wasn't that the air was broken. Well, it was broken, but it only blew like the defrost, and so my hands were freezing, and the kids were so hot. There's always a car issue.
That just seems one of those things.
Almost all those things you have to be flexible about.
And then just I don't know. Then some of the more intimate things is when you have that time, like either in the hotel rooms or in the bunks or whatever it is, and you just get to talk to the kids, and you just get to minister to them in a different way. It's a more intimate setting. And, man, they bring up so many questions. And I think that's where God kind of really taught us how to listen more than we spoke, because just listen to what they have to say. And that helps you understand where they come from. And I feel like that helps you build to that next generation, is because if you just listen to what they have to say, listen to their concerns, let them be real with you. You know, you may not like some of their verbiage, you know, but let them be real and don't hold it against them. You know, if
Yeah,
they're
I think
happy, let them
that's-
be happy. If they're mad, let them be mad.
I think
then
that's one of the things the Lord had to teach us, is that how to fix your face whenever you hear
Yes.
some of the things that come out of them, because the minute you go, they shut down.
Yeah.
So we had to learn very quickly, especially when we went from country kids to city kids. Some of the stories that those kids were telling me, my heart was broken and I wanted to go, oh my God, how did you deal with that? But the minute I made any kind of facial expression, I noticed that they would shut down. So that is something that we, like what you were saying, is being able to listen to them and not have a horrible reaction, and being able to hold your face in a way that was compassionate and that you could sit in them with it, but not make them feel like they were horrible because they experienced or did what they did.
No.
Now, Amberlee, you do kind of your own thing outside of like youth ministry, and y'all did young adults for a while too, correct?
We still do.
You still do.
We have our own deal.
But you went and spoke at conferences and all this stuff. How do you tell me about like being a leader in that aspect, where like you're a speaker and yeah, just tell me about it.
Blows my mind. I don't know who that lady is that gets up there. It's truly Holy Spirit led. But the thing is that the Lord is teaching me that I'm a teacher. And as long as when I get up there, I have the intent of teaching, I truly don't know what happens. I truly don't. I guess it's kind of like for you whenever you lead worship.
Yeah.
You're not an outstanding person. You're not, but it's because that's what God gifted you with, that when you step into that arena, something just happens. Yeah. And other than being able to explain that it's the Holy Spirit, that
yeah,
there's really no explanation. And it truly is. I'm like, Lord, I don't even know how I got here. How there's a flyer with my name on it, or recently I wrote a magazine article.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I like it. It's cool. It's challenging, but it's cool. So just one of those seasons you just have to be open to the Lord.
Exactly. Just be obedient to the calling and just say, okay, wherever you lead, I'm going to follow.
Yep.
Do it.
I don't like it sometimes. But
Same. I feel that way too sometimes.
But outside of that, and not just not liking it, it's like God is intentional about who he brings into your life and the reasons. Yeah. And so I always say, if God wants to get something to you, he brings it through relationship. You have to be careful because the enemy will too.
Yeah.
So
with young adults, since y'all worked with youth so much, what was the difference between young adults or youth and young adults? Have y'all noticed any differences or anything?
I would say their problems are just a little bit a higher scale. They're transitioning more into the figuring out how to be an adult instead of, still being a kid. And so I like that aspect of it, because they come to us with issues and stuff that maybe we've already walked through it. And so we're like, okay, hey, this is how you do it. And we can jump back down in that trench with them because we know the way out. A lot of theirs are more in depth, like relational stuff too. Because we've done some pre-marriage counseling with some of them, and one of them, I mean, they're doing really well, no issues. And then one of them, after about the 5th week, they're like, yeah, this ain't going to work out. They realize things. So to us, that was beautiful. I hated to see the pain and all that stuff, but I'm like, man, you saved you so much.
Yeah, because we started out, we're like, they
we
ain't
knew
ready
it.
for marriage.
Like, we knew it, but they had to find out.
Yeah, we couldn't just tell them that.
And if they would have gone through it and whatever, there's nothing really we can do because we were not told to tell them. And so, but I feel like with the young adults that we're doing now, typically we're like 17 to 27, something like that, depending on, maturity and whatever. But I feel like we try to teach them to use biblical knowledge in a worldly atmosphere. And if you transition in that way, I feel like they'll have success. And we don't have a big group by any means. But when God told me to do it, I'm like, okay, where? And he's like, not in a church. And I'm like, okay, so where? And of course, God just goes silent on me. Anyway, that's just how he works with me because he makes me figure it out. And then, but that's when he said, I felt like coffee shop or something like that. And that's when we started doing it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he said, oh yeah, and take care of everything for them. And I'm like, what does that mean? And so for now, almost 3 years, we've opened up a tab at the Sortino's coffee shop, and we take care of everything. And God has provided every dime for that ministry.
Yeah, like when my car broke down randomly.
Yeah.
And somebody in the church had blessed me with money. And it was you're the first call I made because
Yeah.
Tim was out of town. And then car, as soon as you popped up, God's like, give him $100. And then you're like, this would be great because we used for
and it was a
young adult
Tuesday.
class. Yeah.
And that we meet every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And it's typically, it's typically around $100 every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And because I was like, okay, God, you see my account. Like, this ain't going to work. You're going to have to provide this. And it's super awesome to see people just Venmo me something or whatever. And it's like, hey, this is awesome, And so we've already transitioned. Like, I don't think any of the kids we have right now are actually probably what we started with.
Mine
That I
is
can
Jasmine
think.
and Chase.
Yeah, except for our own.
So
But anyway,
they
maybe
still
one
continue
more.
to minister to the rest of their life because they're your own.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
but no, that's
And Bailey.
Bailey's been with us the longest,
Yeah.
but she wasn't one of the original.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was the thing because he said, "Look, I want you to reach the ones that may not go to church, or the ones that, maybe family life's a little different or whatever it might be." But because I don't know about you, but I mean, at that age, you'd have been like, "Hey, come to church with me." I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah.
Later. But if you just said, "Hey, man, come to a coffee shop with me. I'll buy you coffee or whatever." Yeah, we'll go hang out. So my thing is I love when they come and ask us and like, hey, I have this friend that says they're gay. Can I bring them? Absolutely. Come on. And I've had to learn too, like there's some that we've had to ask to maybe part ways or whatever. But the beautiful thing is like we've reached others in that room. Because we have the whole room. We can shut it off, and we don't. Because there's always somebody sitting in there that's listening. Yeah. And I think that's why God told us to do it more like a public place, because we don't know what or who is actually listening. They might be in there working on something, but they're hearing what you're saying. Yeah. And
we've learned that on more than one occasion.
And so anyway, I love this season we're in right now because we just don't have the grace for a 6-year-old boy anymore.
6th grade.
Sixth grade boy. Sorry.
Yeah.
A 6th grade boy. I'm just saying.
Well, they're 6th grade boys until they're 25. So
Yeah.
typically.
But now, like, it just feels like God has gifted us more with helping these young people get a good foundation. and be able to build on that for future generations, because we think a lot generational. So that's what I love about our season right now.
And I think, and if you notice, like the seasons of life that we were in with our children was the season of life we were in with our ministry. So we had a long range of youth kids because we had a long range between our girls and our boys. So we pretty much did youth from the time that our oldest was able to do youth
Yeah,
until about 2 years after the boys were out of youth. And then it shifted. Now we're on to young adults, and that's the age where all of our kids are. So it's kind of shifted with our stage of life.
But I think that also gives us a lot more knowledge of how to pour into them.
Yeah.
Because we're, we walk now, all of our kids are married and all that stuff now. So, but it helps us know to remember, like, where they were at, and then, how to help better the ones that God's given us.
Yeah.
And they actually know that we understand, because we've just walked through that with our kids or something of that nature,
Well, I think the cleaners may cut us short because they're vacuuming right now. So I don't know if you can hear that on camera. Yeah, Jonathan said yes. But anything
we
y'all
can
wanna,
pause for a minute if you need to.
We might need to. I say anything y'all want to leave. I don't know. Like I said, if it's just my professor watching, or if other students are going to watch this. Any advice that you want to leave? Just a short, maybe statement, phrase that you can leave to the next generation.
If God leads you to it, He'll lead you through it. Because I didn't know. I'm very financially minded too. I'm logistically minded. So I have to have some sort of a plan in place. And when we were in that 4.5-year season of driving that far to go to church, I was like, man, like, this is costing us a lot of money, because we were there at least 2 days a week. Most of the time it was 3 days a week. And I'm like, this is a lot. And it was a lot of late nights, because service, you just let God lead it in service, and you didn't know when you were getting out of there, And so we were back and forth all the time. And, but we knew that was our assignment at that time. And, I say assignment because we knew we weren't forever going to be there. We knew it was a seasonal thing. And so we just truly had to trust that, we would make it. We'd be okay. And so, and don't be scared to step away. That was one thing too. Like, we never thought we'd ever leave where we were. And then once we stepped back, we saw things in a totally different perspective. And then, God opened up new doors for us, but it was our obedience that we had to step out and step away. And, looking at people that we know that have chosen to stay in a season that maybe they're not supposed to be, I look back and I wonder, I'm like, what blessings did you miss out on? What were you supposed to learn that you didn't get? So that's honestly my one big thing. And now today, if God says, hey, okay, go, I'm like, okay, where and when? And He's typically quiet. And then a little bit later, okay, it's getting closer. I know one time I asked Him for an audible date.
Yeah.
It's one of the only times I've heard God audibly. But He said January 26th. And I'm like, okay. And that was our release date. Now, I stayed 3 weeks after that. That was on my own accord. But again, that was that whole transition that she said, that we stepped into that other youth ministry spot. So if we would have been out of season, then, you know, we might not be sitting here today with the experiences that we had with the other ones, you know? And so that's my one big thing that I've learned is just listen, know what God's telling you, asking questions. It's okay, you know, but if you don't hear nothing, be okay with not hearing anything too. And you got to take that step of faith and do what you know you heard, even if there's no direction after that. So that was one of the hardest things to learn.
Hold on to the vision, because for every vision, there's a provision. God promises that. And a lot like exactly what he said is things are seasonal, and knowing what is seasonal and what's covenant. Because some relationships are seasonal and some are covenant. And knowing the difference is wisdom. Also, he talked a lot about leaving, and there's a certain way to leave. You don't leave things undone or messy.
Mm-hmm.
When God tells you to shift, you do the right thing and go and talk to the pastor, because there is blessings in obedience. And if you leave things messy and just walk away, there's not a blessing in that. So moving is important, but you have to move for the right reason, not because you're mad, not because they don't agree with you. Like, there have been seasons when we don't agree with what the leadership is saying, but we got under the vision because God told us to stay. Because everything is seasonal, and being out of season, there is disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Just because I love y'all. So,
what else? Like, we can keep going.
I don't know if I have
like,
anything.
this is
That's
fun.
Like, I'm literally, every book that I read for every class is all jumbled together. So I'm over here going, okay, do I ask them this that I just wrote a paper on, or do I go from here? And then Jonathan's chair. But really, y'all's answers have been very in line with what Pastor and both Jonathan had said, like consistency, personal integrity, being obedient. Same thing about how you handle situations. Like, it's all come from different experiences, but it's all the same thing.
Right.
So,
and I think leadership
really
is just
cool.
helping develop somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, that's the beauty. Like, that's the fun in it. That gives me more excitement than anything else, is to see somebody get it that you've poured into. And it's like, wow, this is awesome. You were listening, you know? It doesn't matter. And honestly, we're talking ministry here, but even in the work world and everything else, like when you're a leader and you're managing and all this stuff, and somebody actually gets it and they do it, they may have done it their own way, but they got it and they understood what you were talking about. You know, they saw the vision that you had and they made it happen.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know, that geeks me out. Like, that is that gives me the more excitement than anything, you know? And, anyway, but I feel like that's just leadership, you know? I don't care how you get there, but let's get there and let's help each other get there. That's it. It's about the end game, you know? It's where you need to be now. Anyway, so, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime.
I got to get a hug from you because
This was a
Oh, yeah.
blast.
We've been here. So, isn't it fun?
This was
I didn't
fun.
think it would be. I've been so nervous about this assignment, but so far I've enjoyed it. It's just conversation.
Yeah.
It's just talking.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
So is speaking. It's just talking.
I'm not there yet. I can do this, but when there's that many people,
The last one I did was supposed to be 50 people. There were 200.
oh yeah, no, I would cry. I would cry.
She rocked it.
Oh, I know.
Just got up there and
Totally rocked it.
so
And that was beautiful.
Okay.
all done.
Right.
Yay. Thank y'all very much.